Welcome back to Breakfast. From wildfires and extreme temperatures, floods and rising water levels, the planet is not in a good place right now. Reducing emissions is one of the key battlegrounds in fighting climate change. So are we being green enough with how we get around it? It's important because road transport accounts for around 15% of Aotearoa's emissions. The government's aiming to cut transport emissions by 41% by 2030. First bit of good news, we are starting to change. More than 180,000 vehicles on our roads are now electric or electric hybrids. But out of a total of 4.7 million, that's only about 4%. It's 33,000 more from the end of last year though, and 18% of new registrations in the first half of 2022 are for some type of electric vehicle. So that's good progress for smaller vehicles. But for bigger transport operations, hydrogen could be the zero emissions answer. Air New Zealand's looking at it as part of its NZ Zero plan to get to net zero carbon emissions by 2050. And New Zealand Post's just started a trial of hydrogen-powered trucks. It's already been put into practice by Team New Zealand and it's making waves. Check this out.
Behind us is Chase Zero, which is our first hydrogen support vessel. It's powered by 2 hydrogen fuel cells driving electric motors. You know, with the America's Cup being the pinnacle of the sport, it is an opportunity to really push the technology, not just in our sailing boats, but also in the whole periphery of the event. The reason we chose hydrogen was it gives us a good range to be able to perform comparably to a conventional chase boat that we've used in the past. Normally we go out with a bunch of fossil fuel powered chase boats, and we really wanted to see how we can minimise carbon emissions moving forward. When we started this project, a lot of industry experts, so to speak, told us that we'd be looking at about 4 years to be able to make Chase Zero perform at the level that we need to, powered by hydrogen. From starting the design to launching the boat ended up being a 9-month project for us. Everyone that we've taken out on the boat gets offered and generally says, you know, we want one. Been really impressed with how it can perform, how it operates, which has been great for us to see pushing this technology forward.
Yeah, I want one. To tell us more about hydrogen, Aotearoa Energy's Chief Technology Officer Dan Kahn joins us now. Good morning, Dan.
Good morning.
Now, I did not do very well with science at high school, so you've got your work cut out for you this morning, Dan. But can you explain to me what hydrogen energy is? What are we talking about here?
I mean, I think the important thing with hydrogen, the easiest way to kind of conceptualize it for a zero-emission vehicle is just to think of it like a battery. So it's really just a way of storing energy. And then, you know, when that hydrogen is used in a vehicle, it's combined in a device called a fuel cell with oxygen in the air, and that makes water and electricity. And then that electricity is used to power an electric drivetrain, just like a battery electric vehicle that you're probably familiar with now. So really hydrogen energy is a way of electrification, and the differences about it are that it's a lot lighter than a battery. So that allows you, particularly for heavy transport, to carry more stuff or to drive further. The other advantage about it is that it can be refueled really fast because you're just putting a gas or a liquid into a tank, as opposed to charging a battery, which has, electrochemical constraints.
And so then when we're talking about green hydrogen, what are we talking about there?
So green hydrogen and, at Hitting Energy, that's really all we ever talk about. So sometimes we forget to put the green in front of it because really that's what's important in terms of achieving our zero emission goals. And green hydrogen means you're producing hydrogen from renewable electricity and you're splitting water into its components, hydrogen and oxygen, H2O. And what's great about hydrogen is that it can be produced flexibly. So we can turn it off at, say, peak times when, in New Zealand, we're usually running our fossil fuel generation equipment. So we can turn it off and we can match sort of the production patterns of the intermittency of renewables. And so green hydrogen is really able to take advantage of that, and we can make hydrogen that follows that sort of pattern.
And this is huge right now, right? Because we are constantly searching for answers to make us more energy efficient with less carbon emissions. And so obviously we saw the piece there with Team New Zealand. I mentioned it in the introduction. Air New Zealand's looking at it. New Zealand Post's looking at it. Is green hydrogen being used widely at the moment as an option?
Yeah, I mean, at Hitting Energy, we're currently building 4 green hydrogen high-capacity refueling stations, to service sort of the applications really that you're talking about, and really focused on the heavy transport space. And New Zealand has actually been a really innovative leader in this space by what you've seen with the boat, and what we're doing on the trucking side, and with the bus by Global Bus Ventures and Auckland Transport, worldwide, it is really starting to accelerate, particularly in the heavy transport space. And what's significant about what we've done with the Team New Zealand project is really that it's giving a message to the world that New Zealand is ready to be a real leader in this space, and demonstrate that we can achieve quite a lot here with our own innovation, and really with what we can cover in terms of infrastructure coverage in a relatively small space.
Which is exciting, right?
Definitely.
And how green is it when we talk about what's the difference in terms of from an emissions point of view?
Well, when hydrogen is produced from renewable electricity and then it's combined in a fuel cell, really the only emission is water. So it is a real zero emissions solution. And again, I think sort of what's unique about it is that it allows us to, because it can be compressed and stored, at Hitting, we're able to sort of deliver that to other sites as well, and electrify parts of the infrastructure here in New Zealand that might be very difficult or have constraints with their grid access. So it's really helpful for large fleet operators that might not have the ability to put in large charging infrastructure in their depots. We can disperse this infrastructure and sort of bring renewable electricity to places that it's actually quite difficult to get it to in the conventional sense.
So what's your focus at the moment at Hitting? What are you focusing on?
At Hitting, it's really an exciting time for us because we're really delivering these first high capacity stations for New Zealand, and really is one of the first integrated heavy transport networks built for hydrogen refueling globally. So right now we're focused on delivering those stations. We also have some other exciting projects where we're developing our own renewable generation, so we can have our own feedstock for the network and industrial offtake for hydrogen. And really by next year's time, we're looking forward to having these stations operating and trucks filling up and moving zero emission freight.
And so then how quickly will things be adopted? Because to me it seems like a no-brainer. If you're Air New Zealand, if you're Team New Zealand, if you're New Zealand Post, why wouldn't you use this green energy? So how quickly could these companies adopt it?
I think what's exciting about hydrogen is that the infrastructure is relatively universal. So there's only one real refueling nozzle, and they all work across all the different vehicles. And I think what's also exciting is that it scales really well. So we can get quite a lot of throughput through these stations from day one. And the challenge is actually when you first build them, there's very little users. Once we build that momentum, and people start to see this is really working, I think it'll be adopted really quickly because, again, what we can achieve in New Zealand with infrastructure is pretty amazing. These first 4 stations that we're building across the North Island cover something like 95% of the freight movements.
Wow.
And that's really because the range that you get from the hydrogen vehicles is so large, and the refueling time is so quickly they can come in, fill, and get on with their business. And that's what's important.
Dan, thank you so much. And you made it, understand it. I got it. I understand it. And the boats look exciting as well. That's Dan Kahn from Aotearoa Energy. Thank you so much for your time this morning.
Thank you.
Right.